But do they have the actual pannekuchens, like the big flat?
What the fuck are you guys talking about? What kind of white people shit?
Pancake.
Like
We're gonna have to go to Amsterdam.
Yeah, we have to go.
Okay, I mean, I'll go to Amsterdam.
But for pancakes.
Are we on the air?
Yeah.
Gabe already said.
Sorry, white people.
When you said white people shit,
You're pannekuchen.
you just offended all the white people.
Well, that would be
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Uh-oh. Shit air.
Gabe.
There we go.
Woo! And we are back for another episode of Wrong About Everything. I am sitting next to the grumpiest guy in the room, Amy Koch.
Kiss my ass, Brian McDaniel.
Ay, carajo, it's hot. Javier Morillo.
And I'm a comedian, Lauren Anderson.
And we are Wrong About Everything. What has crawled up your keister?
Brian, what's going on, man?
I'm fine. I just had an ice cream bar. I'm fine.
Okay, he's okay.
She's projecting.
Okay, he's got his sugar. Maybe his blood sugar was low.
I'm looking at Brian's iPad, and that is not our run sheet. That's,
No, well, because I'm trying to post it, and this is what came up. It's something about Tiffany Amber Thiessen, who dropped the amber, and
So you're saying there's a...
yeah, I mean, this is...
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
I know. It's distracting.
That's just, it's just
Okay.
what's on. I'm
Okay.
trying to do what we're supposed to do, which is get this stupid thing on our personal
He's
page.
just... All right, so here we are, Minnesota Credit Union Network
Look
Studio.
at me on the video. I look good again.
You do look great again.
And you look orange again.
I feel like
Shut up!
I feel like we all look pretty good.
We all look pretty good.
But yes, in my
Some of us
yellow
a little-
shirt.
Some of us a little more orange than
No, I
others.
don't care.
I figured out.
Anyway.
Anyway, all right. So, Credit Union Network Studio. We are here. We are all again here live. Everybody's fully vaxxed, and we are ready to get going. It is freaking hot out this week. It's cooling down today,
It's
but
a little less hot today. It's like
yeah.
Shut up.
So what have you been doing to keep cool? I mean, when Gabe's got the fire on for us here, so it's
I'm gonna throw down the biggest no duh of the century.
okay.
I don't usually wear shorts or skirts, and so I usually like roll through the summer in like summer pants or jeans or something like that, or sometimes leggings, and it's always so hot. And this year I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wear shorts, and I will tell you, it does make a
This is the
difference.
biggest no duh. You know what
It's the
though?
biggest no duh, but it really does make a difference. I was like, God, I'm not that hot right now, and I was like, oh, because for the first time in like a century, I'm dressed appropriately.
Have you heard about air conditioning?
I'm fully air
So my
conditioned.
my husband was like that. He would always wear jeans. He just didn't think he was wearing shorts. And then one year I just bought him a bunch of shorts, and then he never went back.
Yeah.
And he like pretty
I was
much
gonna
owed his
say,
life to me.
I don't think I've ever seen him not in shorts.
Right, he loves shorts now, but he would not wear shorts for like the first 4 or 5 years we were married.
wearing
Yeah.
shorts right now.
I think I was.
I'm sure he is.
I think I was like nervous.
You're
I don't-
welcome,
I don't know. I
Christopher.
had like leftover like body hangups from like some high school thing somebody said to me one time, and then I was like,
Shorts
never
are amazing.
again. And now I'm like, why do people wear pants in the summer? That's stupid.
This just in, shorts.
Shorts, yeah.
Yeah, and also you know what is nice?
Also
Swimming,
flowy.
a
Yeah.
swimming pool.
Flowy
Yeah,
shorts.
caftans.
Yeah, caftans. Like, get yourself some linen fabric, some flowy shorts. I mean,
Oh man, you got to see my new caftans. They are
Live
like
your
a
life.
matching caftan and bathing suits.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, they're really-
Lauren
they're-
discovers summer.
Thank you.
They're so gay, it's making Brian uncomfortable.
Folks, you can discover us. Head on over to our website to learn
Yes.
more about Wrong About Everything, to contact us. People, we're
Give the
scheduling.
URL because it's super complicated.
Okay, so it is
Wrong About
Wrong About Everything
Hyphen
podcast.
podcast.
.com. Thank you to Derek, oh my gosh, Greggy, Dustin Greggy, Dustin Greggy and Honey Hive.
right now.
Honey Hive Digital. Sorry,
tweeted
Dustin.
about it.
Yeah, I was actually getting Derek Nauman, who he also knows is a Buffalo guy. Anyway,
That's
doesn't
how
matter.
you pronounce his last name, Greggy?
Uh-huh.
How do you spell it?
Grage.
Okay, that.
But yes, so it is. It's
not
Greggy.
Grage.
Yep.
Greg.
Yep.
Grage.
Yep. He graduated with the doodle.
Oh,
So
alrighty then.
Greggy graduated with the doodle.
Greggy.
Greggy.
Greggy graduates.
All right. Let's get to paying some bills. How about this? Because support also, for Wrong About Everything comes from Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. It's on Summit Avenue in St. Paul, just down the road from moi. As an attorney, you can help your community improve through service and the pursuit of justice. At Mitchell Hamlin, you can study the law in a way that fits your life. There are full-time and part-time options, Lauren, both on campus and blended online. You can learn more at mitchellhamlin.edu.
But Amy, what if I don't want to help my community improve, but I do want to sue people?
Absolutely. We have an option for you, and it is Mike Bryant, Bradshaw, and Bryant, the entire team of attorneys and staff. They are dedicated to providing you, Javier, and all of us the legal advice that we need, combined with the service and professional and personal attention that we deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 1-800-770-7008 or just go to minnesotapersonalinjury.com.
How do the wrongfully dead contact them?
Nope. Well, it would be
one
somebody
of their
that
loved ones.
Oh, okay.
From beyond. Brian should know. They live in his house.
in my
yeah,
house
a medium. Jody the happy medium.
A couple
We need to have her back on.
Some
I know why you're
very,
grumpy.
very short updates. We have had mysterious body odor smells.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because unlike
Smelt it, dealt it.
unlike my body odor, which is continuous, there have been.
You know what happened is Jenny stopped letting him blame it on the dog.
Yeah.
And so now
My dog smells like flowers. But no, so that's been weird. And then last night was
Hey, wait! You can't just like sit. That makes no sense.
No, he smelled BO. He smelled
How many teenagers are in your house?
Yeah.
they don't come downstairs
You have
ever.
You have newly you have people just entering teenhood, right?
And
like their bodies are changing.
And they're only there half the time. No, and then last night there was almost like a firecracker that sounded like it went off in our kitchen.
Oh,
What?
Yeah, but
do you live on a hellmouth, Brian? Like, what is going on?
So they only moved the headstones, Lauren.
we need we need to get Jody the happy medium back.
wow.
Yep.
Yep.
Firecrackers. Well, it's
That's all
4th of
I
July coming up.
Well,
Firecrackers and body odor.
It's
That's
like
what this
in my
country is called
neighborhood,
the-
firecrackers start.
you remember that mean medium that we had years ago?
Yeah.
So don't talk about
Yeah, no,
that
it's-
medium.
it's-
Well,
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but she got mad that we had a different one on.
Well, she was
And she'll
weird
hex
the last
you.
time we had on her.
Well, she'll hex you. Don't
she
say
won't.
that.
She's
No,
not
she's all
not
about
a witch.
positivity. She's all
Well,
about positivity.
She's just a,
All right. But do
she's
it.
just a little weird about
them.
Jewish people. She was-
I wasn't here for that. I missed
Yeah,
that
no,
medium.
yeah, that's
I
what
brought in the good happy medium.
that's what happened.
That's what I was thinking.
Of course I did. She's sweetness and light, Jody Levon.
Linda, the good medium.
Yes. All right. Speaking of sweetness and light and making it, what I'm doing, I'm making it rain. That's what's happening in Minnesota. We are in a blizzard of money, my friends.
We're talking surplus.
We're talking surplus, because we already had a surplus, and this is surplus to the surplus.
It was awesome, like reading that article and like thinking about like the 2.x amount of dollar swing of like from deficit to surplus. I was like, well, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. So, yeah, the state of Minnesota is in a good place financially.
you, Governor
Coming out of
Walz.
this, okay.
Thank you, Governor Walz. Thank you,
Okay.
Lieutenant
Yeah.
Governor. Thank you, Flanders.
Yes, his
No,
big,
real-
his
like,
big tax hike would have been killing.
They're
but-
representing big box over here.
right, exactly.
One's Target, one's Walmart. Thank
Yeah,
you,
no,
Governor Walz.
because I'm sure if this were a Republican governor, you guys would say.
Of course we would.
Of course we would. But we would have been wrong too.
Yeah.
Everybody always does.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what's happening. We had, in February, they do a forecast, and it was forecast that the state of Minnesota, in November they did a forecast, but that was like, right in the middle of the biggest spike of the pandemic. It was very uncertain, and they used some very conservative numbers, which I'm glad they do, based on what we knew at the time. And there was a projected deficit, of course. Who would not be surprised, right? That because all these businesses have been closed, the state's budget is based on, a lot of sales tax, a lot of income tax. No one knew what was going to be going on, and the numbers were conservative. So fast forward to February, a few months later, they were able to get a better picture, and they forecast a $1.6 billion billion surplus. Surplus. Again, based on our people that forecast are pretty conservative, but still based on a lot better numbers. It was announced this week, yesterday, I believe, that projections in May have come up 119. Oh, Dustin Greggy, thank you, love you. 119% above that February sunnier forecast.
Is that good?
Well, so yeah, that's a lot of, I don't know, you're not good at math.
No.
But that is a big jump. I believe it's a $1.8 billion on top of the $1.6 billion surplus.
And some of that is because we moved when you paid your
right. We moved our income tax or sales tax.
So but all that means is that we would have had it last month,
right,
as opposed to this month.
Right.
So
it still counts to the surplus.
It's all
absolutely. And by the way, the state has $2.3 billion in reserves, has for many years now. We have a monster reserve. We have got $8 billion coming in on top of all the money that the state received last year, billions from the federal government under the Trump administration. Under the new ARP from Biden, it's an additional $8 billion coming to the state. I just saw that the 10 senators announced $1 trillion in infrastructure. So the state is basically swimming in money.
We got too much money. Vikings are going to ask us for another stadium.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
It is it's a lot of money. And so
they want one that doesn't suck now.
Yeah. And still yet the legislature's not done with their work. But hopefully soon.
I don't think it's the money that's keeping
it. Is not the money. No, of course it's not. So the last time we went to shut down was 10 years ago. We're closed if they don't get their work done by June 30th, which by the way, does anybody think they're not going to get their work done by June 30th?
I think they're going to get almost all of it. Maybe not all of it, but they're going to get most of it.
Who's the they?
The legislature and the governor. They're all
the leadership or the caucuses. You think they'll be done?
I think that they'll be done. I think there's no appetite. I think there's no appetite for shutdown. We experienced shutdown. It was a decade ago. It was the longest shutdown.
By we mean Amy.
Okay. Yeah. But the Dayton-Zeller shutdown was incredibly painful.
Were you in the room? Were you not in the room where it happened?
I was in the room, but I was the one that was trying to get things done.
Oh, yeah. So.
Actually,
a little bit of revision.
Okay, but no, but here's the other difference.
Tell whether we're in the red or the black because she's
colorblind. All right.
She's colorblind. That's correct.
No, I mean, but there's a massive difference. We were $5 billion in deficit. We went, the surplus, the rainy day fund, the economy had crashed, and we had gotten Obama money, but they'd already spent all of that. By they, I mean Governor Plenty, a Republican, and a Democrat House and Senate, by the way, equal parties had spent all the money. The rainy day fund was $0.00. It's now $2.3 billion. Then we opened the cupboard and it was $0.00. So like the whole situation is completely changed and different. And so that's why I just think there's no reason not to get. The only reason to not get a deal here is, just too. I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest here, as like a layperson, not knowing like the financial matters of state, like offhand, like this. Even finding out that the state has a rainy day fund was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't think that was.
It's actually
the assumption is that government's kind of always in debt, or at least that's my assumption. And I know that's terrible.
Well, that's correct on the federal.
On the federal level, it's true. They can deficit spend, but on a state level, we're constitutionally required to balance the budget every 2 years.
So the bonding is essentially deficit.
Well,
spending.
It's debt spending. It's debt spending, but it's bonds that we pay out. So it's different than deficit. So deficit spending would mean we spend $1 billion more a year than we actually take in. But in Minnesota, you can't do that. You have to have a balanced budget. And after you have a surplus, so like, for example, we had a big deficit in 2011, but we didn't raise taxes. And by November of that year, just 6 months after we did the budget, we actually had a projected surplus of 1.3. So we started paying back and the first dollars that come in surplus, a certain percentage is required to go to the rainy day fund. So it's not even like that they get to decide. If there is any kind of surplus and there's room to go into the the rainy day fund was at zero, it was required by law that the first dollars went into the rainy
and
day
bonding
fund.
Is more like using a credit card, but you have to account for the debt service in your budget.
And this was supposed to be a bonding year, and then hellfire broke out.
No. Every other.
Every other. A budget year.
Well, odd year's budget.
That stuff. I mean, used to be that you did bonding and you did policy in the second year. There are no rules anymore. We do bonding willy-nilly. We do put policy in.
And by the way, there'll be a supplemental budget next year because of this big surplus that comes in now. They can't spend that. They aren't going to spend that. That's not a part of their budget that they're hammering out because technically they base their budget on the February forecast. So then next year they'll get this new forecast in February and they can spend it, or they can just leave it, go to the bottom line, or they can give it back to people.
So if they can't spend it, what was Walz urging people to take politics out of and pass the budget? If you can't spend it.
So I think what he was saying is, first of all, there's so much money. I think this was just another good news. I think the idea was we're okay. The projections are good. They're even better than what we're looking at right now. So feel comfortable, make the moves, close the budget, and then we can come back next year.
Okay, and then we can spend it.
But the issue is that and I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong on these things, but there are policy things like all of the police reform stuff.
Yeah.
That's not really a money issue, but that is something that is unresolved in a finance bill.
Right.
So the public safety bill could be passed, but for policy issues that are still being worked out, and I should say that is now how it always is, but in the near past, we didn't put policy in budget bills for this specific reason. Right.
But now it's happening. If policing of the state gets a large part of the budget, now it almost has to because it's become a issue.
Well, public safety does there is a whole, there's health and human services, there's K-12 education, there's higher ed, and then there's a public safety budget, which is corrections, the judiciary's in there, state patrol, all of those kind of fundings. I mean, the state has a lot of, we have our own enforcement.
You could potentially still allocate X amount of dollars to public safety and then go into any kind of police reform or defunding later on.
You totally could. You could have a separate policy.
Okay.
In theory. But since budget is the must pass thing, now would be the time to exercise your power to there was a
you have more leverage, right?
There was an op-ed that
money talks, people.
State Senator McEwen, is that
McEwen? She's up in Duluth.
Wrote, I believe, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about one. Senator Osman, not Osman. Senator who replaced J.F. Hayden.
Oh, Omar Fateh.
Omar Fateh, yes. That was, he wrote an op-ed about policing and such, and there was a conversation. I was having an exchange with Senator McEwen on Twitter because there's a lot of lamenting that about how we didn't get hearings on police reform or whatever, and what I don't understand is how on both sides, the caucuses, we talked about this the other week, but people complain that the leaders make all the decisions. But given the very narrow majorities, any small group of legislators could, in theory, block a deal. If they're willing
to hold out for something.
To hold out for something.
And the budget is a must pass or there is a shutdown. And so so there's a lot of leverage there.
And originally, the Posse Caucus, which is the People of Color Indigenous Caucus, they said they're not going to be voting on budget bills until there is police reform, and that has been walked back pretty significantly, which surprises me. And as just a political science guy, I kind of want to see them exercise their power. I mean, because that's what politics is fun when you trade. One group has the ability to make you actually trade this for that, but we don't do anything.
And we don't trade.
Or if they did trade something for no longer doing that, we're not aware of what it was.
Yeah,
meaning maybe they got something out of it. It would be nice to know what, but to give that up and then later, sort of blame leadership, the governor and the leaders for not doing this. To me, is kind of bullshit.
I taped At Issue with Tom Hauser, which will be on Sunday at 10 a.m. on KSTP. But Representative Cedric Frazier, who is the author of many of the DFL author of many of those police provisions, he was certainly not making it sound like they had traded something to take him off the table. They're still very much on the table being discussed. But
but what are you going to? And
it was the governor, and this is not a slam on the governor. I'm just talking strategy, the governor, in theory, once upon a time, could have traded the mask mandate for some of this stuff. That didn't happen. Now it could be emergency powers, but I don't know that that's going to happen either. So that gets back to those were some of the things that Republicans wanted. And ultimately, they're going to get it eventually without having to give anything for it, and that's just not good politics.
Okay, before I know.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I know we want to move on probably, but before we do, I just want to ask a fun question. Okay, it's like once we're in the billions, like that's some FU money, right? And you always talk about like if you had that kind of like change, like if you personally could spend that money for Minnesota in one way, like what would you do with it? Like this is just like dreams of dreams.
3 answers.
Okay.
1, transportation. 2, local public health. 3, alternative protein research.
All right, vote for Brian. Okay.
And you can check his campaign finance report to know that is a total swamp monster answer.
He's going to get any disclosures here? Jesus.
Brian McDaniel, weekly disclosure. Remember
I mean, I agree with those priorities. I don't know what is the third one?
Alternative protein.
Alternative proteins.
Is that like plant-based?
Research. Yeah, plant-based proteins.
Oh, you're all vegans now?
No. All I'm saying.
You've been hired by the vegans.
I am all about trying to find ways to use Minnesota products in a way that brings jobs to Minnesota.
Yeah.
What's wrong with innovation
and promotes
ag?
veganism?
Which
is cool.
What's wrong with innovation in ag?
Put some bacon on your veggie burger. I'm not here to judge you.
No, I'm just saying.
That actually sounds delicious.
Oh, that does sound good.
You know what? It does sound a lot like this podcast, bacon on a veggie burger.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll share mine.
Yes, go ahead, Lauren.
So
what would you do?
I read a short story once about imagine the country if everything had red roads, and I think about that poem all the. It's like a short story, and I forget the author, but. Then there's been all these innovations about like solar powering the roads, and then if you lighten the color of roads, that it would lower the city temperatures, which would help with overall global warming. And I was like, what would the world look like with like either solar paneling on our roads that like receive a lot of sunlight all day long, and then what would it look like if we like changed the color of our roads? And I was like, why does asphalt have to be black? I know like when you go to Miami, like the number one thing you notice is like all the like, or at least for me, outside of palm trees and like excess of spandex, like the number one thing you notice if you go to Miami is all the highways are white. There's like
why I gotta be white?
Well, because it reflects sun. It reflects sun. And so
I thought when you said excess spandex, you were gonna say excess Spanish.
Oh no,
which is
what the hell?
because that's the first thing I notice when I go to Miami. It's not like white highways. It's like that. It's a Latino place.
Yes, I mean very much so. But I wouldn't say an excess of Spanish.
But some people notice that, and some people don't.
I would never say that, dude. Not that way.
That's why I was surprised.
Okay, no.
It's the excess that was.
But like if I just had like $1 billion of fund money, like I think that's like that's a really interesting solve for like a lot of major problems. And I would like to see like what it would do if it was implemented. America with red roads.
See, I mean, I would say I think I like moving more toward a more sustainable economy. That would be one that would be on my list.
Yeah.
Or something that like some big weird innovative project to connect Minnesota.
Yeah.
Related to our next topic of discussion.
Yeah.
But something
like broadband?
Like fucking broadband.
Do you check his campaign finance? Did you get a new client?
I support broadband.
Did you get a new client?
I fell for it. I thought it was like, wow. Sure, broadband. Okay.
Like a mural.
Anything else you want to just throw in there?
I think what you're missing is he's for these things.
Yeah. Also, driver's licenses for all.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I do support.
Money's not the problem.
Of course.
Amy, what about? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have to spend it, or can I just give it back to the people that paid it in?
If you think Minnesota is already perfect, and like for example,
so I would spend money on early childhood. I would make sure that we have all the kids that are under 5 years old that need some and parents that are struggling. I'd find an innovative way to get some resources there, because little kids between 0 and 5 are.
You get a MyPillow and you get in my pillow. And you get in my pillow.
No, but their little brains, like the patterns and everything, and all the wiring is happening in those first 5 years, and so
That is true.
that sets the path for so many kids and so many adults. So.
Now, personally, what would you buy? Because I would buy a carousel and a personal chef.
Wait,
I would
the
just
second
buy-
one is a human being.
I mean, higher. I meant higher.
I'm just
But
saying.
you're just really worried about
What
her.
is going on? I'm on your side
No,
of the table, dude.
Just know this. Just know this, white ally. He hates you.
I guess. No.
Yep.
We learned that a long time ago.
You just said it weird.
It's okay. You always hurt the ones you love the most.
You know what, Javier? Would know what I would do with my money? I would buy her Cook's Freedom.
Oh, Jesus.
Good job, Brian.
Oh, no. I meant hire a personal chef.
And a carousel?
And I would get myself a carousel. We're talking fun money. We're talking like, you don't have to say.
I would buy
Get-
so
I
many
would get
diamonds.
myself a cabin.
And not invite us.
I'd invite every expat. Everyone
yeah.
who's not a native Minnesotan. It's a cabin for everyone to come up.
I would buy 20% of the Chicago Cubs.
No, I just travel the world and
what my-
wear
that's what my
diamonds the
$1
whole time.
billion
Like,
dollars would buy.
so much jewelry.
Yeah. I would wear so much chili, too.
Yeah. Like my private jet would have a whole closet for just that. All right.
I'd hire people to steal your jewelry.
Okay. All right. So let's get to the next topic. So there was an interesting article that came out in the Atlantic, a very long article, but it's worth checking out. So if you Google, it's by George Packer,
Sorry to
and
make
it's
you read.
if you Google the Atlantic and Four Americas, you're going to find this article. So Javier, do you want to walk through it? It basically posits that America broke up kind of around the 60s and 70s is where America started to splinter into kind of four different Americas.
So it's by George Packer, and there's been a lot of people talking about it. So I thought it'd be a good thing, especially given kind of what, like the nature of our podcast of people.
Yeah, and then we're going to
disagreeing
all
and
say which kind of America we are, by the way.
and basically says that America has become split in like there are four strata, I guess, four Americas. One, and there's shorthands for each. One, the Free America, Smart America, Real America, and Just America. Free America is sort of, I would say, like traditional republicanism, like country club republicanism, like
Brian.
Brian,
right? Like the conservatives from like Ronald Reagan conservatives. I don't want to say George Will. Oh my gosh, the true libertarian, William F. Buckley Jr., like that kind of, that conservative type.
Right. And then Smart America, which is sort of like urban liberal elites, essentially, like kind of like college educated, well paid.
But people who read the Atlantic.
People who read the Atlantic, for example. Real America takes like that from how Sarah Palin used that term when she ran for vice president, just sort of like the America, rural America, small town America, and the America kind of like think of it as the Trump folks, the base that Trump kind of really
Rust Belt.
cultivated. Yeah.
Yep.
And then Just America is essentially, like I'd read that as kind of millennial, like Bernie type younger people, like your daughter, Rachel Koch is part of Just America.
Yeah, but she's, I think, recently joined the Young Republicans, if I understood her Facebook
it was
page.
actually the young Rembrandts.
Or like the people that you see on TikTok that is like, pride doesn't exist unless you like take ableism into account. They're thinking on like multi-platform levels of like
Intersectional wokeness.
Intersectional, yeah.
You know the word intersectional?
I understand. I will observe everything you're doing. It isn't that I haven't thought about it. I've just rejected it.
I see your Puerto Rican gay ass, but I only deal with one thing at a time.
I mean, you got to know about it in order to not like it, right?
Well, I understand all the facets of your person.
Republicans have there's lots of stuff we hate that we know nothing about.
That's true. That is very true.
It's a hallmark of our brand.
Yeah. But and it's related to Amy and I read with the first ever Wrong About Everything book club, the book Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein, and his thesis is essentially that that sort of pre-civil rights era that there was a thing such as conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans.
Yes.
And that post-civil rights era, and with the Southern Democrats becoming Republicans, that and pro-choice Republicans either becoming Democrats or independents, and pro-life Democrats either becoming Republicans or independents, that we know, like, there was that's the sort of at the heart of polarization, that when we were less polarized, we were also far less equal, right? That we were less polarized essentially under segregation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because there were no options. You had to be like a tuna casserole, like that's, you know.
And that's what there's, yep, exactly.
Right, but it's, I mean, it's interesting because then polarization in that context is less of a loaded term, is just a description of like how we are, because it's not necessarily to not be polarized. If it means that we're back into segregation, is obviously not a good thing. But and so, like, the question for us is what do we do with this America that is so siloed? I mean, I actually think that they're like, my reaction to the piece is that I think it's missing like at least one other, probably two other, like, Americas in here, because I think the way just America is defined in that, like with young people, that is defined, I think, through a pretty white lens, and I think, like, sort of the I would say the low wage workers of color, like especially Latinos and African Americans, I think are in a different category than all of the others.
Interestingly, I felt there were parts of those that I thought were real America, right? Like and I've always said this, that there are, like, Greater Minnesota has, you know, a lot more in common with North Minneapolis than either folks living in either area would think. When I worked on the North Market, which was because there was a food desert in North Minneapolis, a great helper with that was Representative Bob Gunther from Fairmont, because guess what? Tremont and two other towns in his area also didn't have a grocery store and had to come to get to that because they had a food desert as well. So anyway, I felt like there's a crossover there, and I don't know what you would call that, but it's...
Well, this is where I think, I mean, like, to your earlier question, which was not planned, but and why I think, like, I think one of the things that came up in our discussion with the book club was, like, to me, I think part of what is missing today is opportunities for people to be with each other when politics is not at all at issue, like, meaning, like, literal, like, and then I was thinking about that on the way here, and then I thought, like, oh, fuck, I think I'm thinking of potlucks, which I hate, but if you had, like, a Minnesota-wide potluck, like, where you, like, just brought random people together across geography to just, like, and everyone's like, okay, you got the tuna casserole, whatever. I know, people who know me if they listen to this are like, what the fuck are you talking about, Javier? You hate potlucks. And I do hate potlucks because...
But honestly, like, that's one of the reasons why I love the Minnesota State Fair so much, is because you see, like, a majority of the state, and you, like, I'm in a definite liberal bubble of, like, you know, smart liberal, like, I would say I'm the least smart among my friends. And, like, and you go to the state fair and you remember, like, oh, there's these types of people in Minnesota and these types of people and these types. And it's nice to, like, where everyone's kind of enjoying themselves. Everyone's having a fresh peach and, like, a day in the sun. And, like, it's nice.
And it really does feel like a great Minnesota get-together.
It really does.
Yeah, that's right. So
by the way, this is not, we need them as a sponsor. We just...
Oh, the state fair. Maybe we want to host a potluck at the state fair, because I think there is a difference between eating corn dogs out of a inspected, like, truck and just eating someone else's that they cooked up in their kitchen.
Corn dogs, yeah.
Right.
You don't know. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and other times you're like, you know, you got to, like, you know,
great
kinda
job. That was,
spit it out into a napkin.
I once stumbled into a potluck in northern Minnesota. It's a long story. And they served bear. They served me bear. And we're like, oh, that's gamey.
Was it good?
It was gamey.
It's gamey. It tastes like bear.
Did you feel stronger afterwards?
No.
Remember the one time that Javier went to speak somewhere in a DFL event and they had the taco bar in his honor?
Yeah,
it was amazing. It was amazing.
That was
it was amazing. I forgot about that.
Did they in your honor?
It was not in my honor.
Okay. They just were having a taco night.
It was just like people who, I know some of them at least, listen to the podcast, and there were lots of jokes on the podcast about how these racists think I'm Mexican, and there were jokes, and that's cool, whatever. But then, like, they decided to have my keynote speech be accompanied with a taco bar.
You know, I was in Minnesota when I was young. We called tortilla chips taco chips, and there is a holdover of population that still calls tortilla chips taco chips.
You mean like nachos, like
Yeah,
like Doritos?
yeah. Like they're like, pick up some taco chips at the store.
Because I'm gonna put them in my salad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you-
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was
you
the
put 'em
only
in your-
like
was
that was your only like viewpoint into like Mexican food was tacos.
Right, but the thing about this, and what do you guys think of like that? I think I don't agree. I could nitpick about all there's things about how he defines the four Americas, but what I do think is true is that we're becoming so incredibly siloed, and these silos are becoming, with a mix of like literal physical siloing, like away from each other, overlay onto that political polarization is the sort of secret sauce of our stumbling towards civil war.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I mean, obviously, when you read it, I mean, there's no way for it not to be like overly simplistic, and I think we all acknowledge that that there was no way to kind of make it perfect. I think they did a reasonably good job on some of it, but at a time when we could, as a society, be connected like never before, where a kid in northern Minnesota could have a best friend in North Minneapolis by way of the internet and gaming and all of that, because the wrong people have gotten to be in charge of all of those methods of communication, that it is almost siloed. It has siloed us more, and it has also made it so like we can't. Like, well, I sometimes tell a story about when I was at Allery's Bar in St. Paul, which is a Chicago bar, and we were watching
What do you mean it's a Chicago bar? It's what
Chicago Bears. It's
Chicago Bears.
It's a Bears bar.
Bears bar.
Like, what's the Steelers bar? McGovern's, right? It's Steelers?
Yeah.
Oh, this is why when the Super Bowl was here, people mistook the Eagle Bar, where I'm going to be later, 3 for ones, for the Philadelphia Eagles bar. They thought it was
different bars.
They are known as.
They were known as.
They're known as.
Yeah.
Like,
So
maybe
anyway,
their owners are fans.
So yeah, well, Allery had.
They were in for
Bears.
surprise.
But anyway, the Bears. This was the very famous game against the Arizona Cardinals, where former Vikings coach Denny Green lost the lead and lost his mind at the end. They are who we thought they are. Let them off the hook. Want to crown their asses? Then crown their asses.
Is there a point to this?
There is. That the Bears came back from so far that there was such a joyous release that white guys, black guys, everyone in between, where everyone was hugging and everyone had a common purpose. And we don't have that, because even sports now, you're a Kaepernick person or you're a Tebow person, movies, television, everything is political now. And if you find something to enjoy, somebody on the internet will find a way to shit all over it. Somebody does something nice for a kid, they'll find a tweet from when he was 12 that make him an asshole. Anything we have where that could be a rallying point, we don't have anymore. And not that we would ever want to say, well, war, but we don't even have war anymore. When we go to war with another country, even we're split.
We're totally divided. We're totally divided.
We've always been divided on war.
Well,
every
not
single
like
war
now.
has
By
had
definition, war is pretty divisive.
So what they talked about is like patriotism and identity as Americans. So we don't identify as just Americans. We identify as all these different, and in fact, like the smart Americans are sort of embarrassed by patriotism. They see it as a relic of the past and something that's been used to control, and they're much more identifying with their family and their kids' school and all, all
Unless
these
they're
things.
Minnesotan, which they're identifying with being Minnesota.
Although
No, absolutely, and that's
I
what
used to-
keeps us strong.
I used to boast about being so proud of my state, and then the more work I've done to like discover like how terribly we do about about like on race, and then in the wake of George Floyd, I'm no longer very proud of Minnesota. You know, I'm still proud in some ways, but like I used to be very boastful about like our education system, and then when I found out like, except we're leaving a large part of our population.
It's really
behind.
good for some people.
Right.
Well, that, you know, and that's the unfortunate part. Like, so I'm doing the work of dismantling like my white privilege and like what I've known, and then you find out like, oh my God, all these things, like education is a big one, where I was very, very proud of the education in Minnesota, and I'm not so proud anymore because we've left people behind.
But even that's different than identifying like as American. You know, somebody commented to me that like they thought there was a bunch of flags for, I think, Flag Day on Summit Avenue, and you know, someone commented to me like, "Oh, what's going on? Did someone do that like to be aggressive?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's just Flag Day." But like they felt like the flag has become a symbol of. It's become political, and it should not be political. It represents all of us, but even our own American flag has become something that's controversial somehow.
Well, we're all getting to be, you know, racial. I don't know if racial or background. Our backgrounds are getting more mixed. I can remember growing up in a suburb of Chicago where different towns this was an Irish town. That was, you know, this part of town was Italian. And I can remember like in school, like people knew every, you know, my mom is this, my dad is this, we're Catholic or we're Lutheran or whatever. And I think that is going away, in that your people aren't necessarily identifying as much. Minnesota, we like to say we're Scandinavian and all that stuff, but that's kind of going away. And part of this is, and this is a good job that the left is doing, is that we no longer think of, well, St. Paul is Irish and Minneapolis is Scandinavian, because that's a white way of looking at it. You can also say there's Somali in Minneapolis and Hmong in St. Paul, but we don't really do that anymore. And I think that's
highest urban Hmong population in the world outside of
yeah. And I think that is something, like stuff like that should be leading to more unity, but it's not. And part of it is physical segregation, which the pandemic has done. But we've also been kind of doing it. I
think I think it absolutely predates it. I think it's been, you know, the process has been going on literally for decades. But I think and the weird thing is that there is this contradiction, I think, because I think like when you look at pop culture, right? Pop culture in the 50s especially, but 60s, 70s was extremely segregated, right? Like, and then very slow, or you had like, you know, white people like Elvis Presley, you know, basically stealing black music and then, you know, sanitizing it for white masses. And today you actually have like it's artists of color, and white kids listen to all kinds of music, and it's so, because both things happening at the same time, the extreme siloization while there's also hybridization of culture is really, it's weird.
I have an interesting like idea. This article brought up some interesting thoughts from me. If I do say so myself, that came out weird. But like the idea is that like I feel like Americans in general are becoming more individualized, and so and if you're going to, the way we used to come together is on things that we have in common. And now the way that we come together is a celebration of how individual we are. And so if we can get behind this idea of we are very different people and yet we still have common interests, and then somehow find a way to celebrate that idea, because I think like what young people come to represent is like, you know, this is my family, these are my you know, mental illnesses I struggle with, you'll see some of that, this is my upbringing, this is my education, and yet I'm friends with this person who has this many differences from me, but we both like the same video game, we both go to the same school, and we're and that's why we're friends. And then there's this opportunity, I think, from younger people are teaching us that you don't have to be perfect. In fact, every single thing is flawed, and they are more comfortable than like even myself, with accepting that like everything is flawed.
But I don't think they accept the flaw. That's a problem that
Well,
I have. I think that they accept a flaw in a certain area, but they're very quick to
But I think
like cut down they're very quick to cut down mistake.
I mean, but before we go there, though, I do think when you're implementing a new idea or a new thing, you have to overcorrect to get heard. So I think we're in like a period of overcorrection where we are calling out every single thing, pretty harshly and pretty extremely, to let it be known that it's appropriate and okay to know about the bad things from our past. Whereas before, like in the 60s, like you didn't have access to celebrities. You didn't have, everybody kept all of their dark secrets in the closet. You didn't talk, families didn't talk about mental illness. There was none of that. Everything was like, you look perfect in your 2-piece sweater ensemble and you make the perfect thing and you buy the perfect stuff and everything's status quo and that is how it is. And all that other stuff got hidden, and now it's like, no, we don't want anything hidden anymore. We want it out on the table. And I think we are in a period of like pretty extreme overcorrection where that tweet from when you're 12 will cancel somebody. I do think, however, that it's also teaching us that the people that survive that cancel process are the people that will cop to their own mistakes.
I mean,
they're not asking like
some, but yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting what you're calling overcorrection, because I do think
and I mean overcorrection in that like the coming down harshly.
Yeah. No, I'm actually accepting that premise and thinking on that because I think that to me there's a very necessary push on representation, right? And then which leads to people like honoring the experience of an individual person, like who's you've lived in that body, I've not, and so you could speak to that, I can't. But what taken to an extreme, what that misses is that there's is empathy.
Yeah.
Is that like we cannot give up, I think, on the prospect that me not having lived your experience doesn't mean that I can't empathize and build a relationship with you, and do something about whatever problem.
In fact, it's the only way to do something about a real problem. If we keep siloing, we won't.
No, because I can tell you, high school and college Brian was nowhere near as open to a lot of the things that 48-year-old Brian is, and it's because I did not grow up, with a lot of friends that if they were gay that they were out, or in a
high school Brian would have never made out with me.
I never would have. And
now it's definitely on the table.
It's 2021. Whatever. I mean, just finish. I jest, but also until you really kind of start having friends that are gay, that are of a different race than you, that are a different religion from you, then it makes it a lot harder to call them names. Makes it a lot harder to discount their accounts, and I think it goes the other way too. Yeah. I mean, the reason we have this podcast is because Javier didn't know that there were Republicans that supported marriage equality, and I told him pretty much everybody younger than me does, and that's something because until you start having people in your life that you maybe think are, I'll use the word the enemy, but you know what I mean, until you can see that there are different shades of things, and that you should maybe sometimes even have empathy for their lack of experience.
To be clear, it wasn't that I didn't know there were Republicans who supported gay marriage. I didn't know there were Republicans who were funny.
We're still searching.
We're looking.
Still searching.
We keep looking. All right. Well,
Frasier's pretty fun.
We should move on, but folks, check out the Atlantic for Americas and let us know what you think.
I had to look up a word in that article. Full disclosure.
What was
ameliorative.
Oh,
ameliorative.
Ameliorative.
There's an R.
Yeah.
Softens it.
Yeah. They ascribed it to Eleanor Roosevelt, who I am a huge fan of, and I was like, well, I better look this word up. Because if they're saying something about Eleanor, I gotta go off on this. And it turns out ameliorative is a great word. It means to make things better, like in general, for everyone.
You should
It's a great word.
use that on Noodle Pie Island.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
I
throw
will.
that around.
Let's ameliorate the situation.
That's ameliorative. Bay.
All right, let's do plugs. Speaking of Noodle Pie Island, plugs. Go, Lauren.
I have created a children's show called Noodle Pie Island. It's interactive. Right now, we had just finished off season 1. We finished with a bang. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan came in to guest, and as well as her daughter Siobhan. Was awesome. All of the episodes. Season 1 is available online on YouTube at Daleco Arts, DALEKO Arts.com on YouTube. You can watch for free. Catch up on season 1 because we are coming back strong with season 2. Javier just agreed to be a guest on the island, so we're going to create a fun character for him.
I'm going to be swarthy.
Swarthy. I think rooster, right? Didn't we kind of come?
Swarthy rooster.
A swarthy rooster.
Oh, he does like cocks.
Okay, it's a children's show.
It's a
children's show.
That's a joke from a former mayor.
But check it out online. We're developing merch right now.
Wait, can we do it like Pee-wee's Playhouse where there was all double entendre?
Yeah.
So that the adults can get it.
I mean, some like a Pee-wee's Playhouse was born from of an underground club scene. So definitely
The Groundlings, right?
he was part of the Groundlings. Yeah. He was part of the Groundlings and part of gay
Look at this.
club culture.
Watch this. I'm watching some of Noodle Pie.
Yeah.
I see why Javier said
Because Paul Rubens was very edgy.
Yeah, very edgy comedy, and it translated pretty. Like a lot of the characters that showed up on Pee-wee's Playhouse also showed up. Started off on the club scene.
Captain Carl.
And similar to me, I have a background in sketch comedy. I have a lot of talented friends, and I also really, really believe in children's education and the power of play. So join me on the island. I promise you, it's children appropriate.
Javier.
The swarthy,
As hard as we try to make it not.
Swarthy and still appropriate for kids.
Javier.
So you guys, I have bad news.
Oh no.
We have no new members of the
Son of a bitch.
I will say I had brunch this past weekend.
It's been hot.
with friends who are Minnesotans and listeners of the podcast, Tom, and I was like, there's a debate on whether I should be me, and Tom, the Minnesotan, said, I think we need that.
Yeah.
So
okay, trust
I
Tom.
just here to tell you, because that was also by way of Tom saying, I intend to not be a dick soon. I haven't done it yet. So Tom,
I get that a lot. Yeah.
yeah, you and everyone else, you're on notice because a week has gone by. We have not one new patron, and you know what? Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
We work our asses off. Yeah. It's hot outside. It's
so hot.
really freaking hot.
Reading that
It's
Atlantic
hard
article,
to put together
That article was so long.
I told the gang before we started recording that every week it feels like I'm doing a book report. This is hard work.
I'm not gonna lie. I only got past the second America.
And that is the problem with your America.
Yeah.
He's real America.
He stopped at Country Club America.
He's not smart America.
He used to be free America.
He
but
got
he's
to
become
Country.
real
He got
America.
to Country Club America. He looked at Real America and he's like, "Yeah, I guess that's our base."
It's fine.
I'm done. Anyway,
there was a listener earlier that appreciated that State Fair metaphor that I put out there.
that's
So
Phil Lindquist.
Philip, I see you
Yeah.
and thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope you're a patron.
Every Tuesday,
Every Tuesday. Go ahead, Brian.
you can find Amy and I on the Bob Sansevier Show every Tuesday. It's a radio program in Duluth, St. Cloud, Worthington, and a couple other places. The podcast everywhere else. So that's Amy and I every Tuesday. And this Sunday on KSTP, which is Channel 5 at 10 a.m. You can find me on the at issue with Tom Hauser.
Sometime we should just get mimosas and yell at our screen when Brian's on.
Hey, woo!
Well, then someone would watch.
Yes, he's like, somebody's watching me. All right.
I like
Okay.
it when I say something controversial on there, and then literally nobody.
Spanks
else
and thanks, and everybody's on the clock. You got to do these fast. Who's going first?
I'm going to thank today. Pulitzers were announced, and Darnell Frazier, the young woman who videotaped, who recorded the horrific murder of George Floyd, was given a special award by the Pulitzer Committee. And, you know, as we saw in the trial, that having experienced that was traumatic for her and everyone who was there, and nothing can take that trauma away. But it's a good thing, I think, that she's being recognized for her bravery and making sure that the world knew what had happened. That's my thank. My spank is for, if you're listening to right-wing news at all, you might have heard, like, everyone's like in hysterics about something called critical race theory. I challenge anyone who is currently talking about it to explain it to me. Critical race theory, because I actually studied this in graduate school. It started in law schools. It's actually, I've heard it this last week, equated to like, it is the study of race the way that the economy, like economics is the study of the economy. We all use money. We all know what dollars are, but we all don't study we don't study economics. We don't know all the theories and all that. And critical race theory was a way of trying to understand the role that race has played in U.S. society, and looking at structures that maintain racism. So, for example, Minneapolis, you might wonder, well, why are some parts of the city full of single family homes while other parts of the city have more apartments? Why are some parts of the city like where rich white people live? While some parts are like where black people or where poor Latino folks live? These things have historical roots. Like there was a time when real estate agents would literally not allow black people to buy homes in South Minneapolis, for example. And we have inherited these things. And so it's an attempt to look at just the structures that keep racism alive. That's what critical race theory is. What is being, and we now have this rash of laws in red states that have been passed banning the teaching of critical race theory. What is crazy about that, right, is that there are now more states banning critical race theory than there are colleges or schools that teach it.
Wow.
Because it's a bizarre boogeyman. It literally just makes no sense. And what they're actually doing in Oklahoma's, the way they phrased it in Oklahoma, was bans the teaching of anything that makes people uncomfortable.
Really?
Which I don't know how they're going to talk about anything in Oklahoma history, but
They're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Go Sooners!
This is actually an attempt to ensure that race not be taught in a country that was founded whose foundational documents, the Constitution, has slavery written into it. In a country that fought a civil war over the enslavement of African peoples, in the country that had Jim Crow, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, had red zoning, had a civil rights movement, had just last year George Floyd.
I'm going to ban critical race theory. Everybody including on the podcast.
Yeah.
No. All right. No.
Shocker.
You're on the clock, I
talk.
said.
Yeah, well.
All right.
What do you got to do? You got to blow out?
No. And if I did,
I was on a roll. Anyway, fuck Republicans. That's what I meant.
It's pretty. That is pretty strange.
Or the cock you.
Can't wait to see him as a rooster. Okay, who's next? Brian?
I can go.
All right. Go, Lolo.
So my spank this week is kind of shocking because I'm going to spank the guy that has been charged with impersonating family members of former President Trump. I know. Joshua Hall is a guy from Pennsylvania who's been charged with wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. He's been claiming to be Trump's brother and then raising money. And then when the brother passed away, he opened an account under like Barron Warren's name, and then has been like stealing thousands of dollars and claiming that it was like some sort of like, campaign funds or whatever. And I'm spanking that not because I don't think Trump deserves every bad thing that can happen to him, but because I don't think this stuff is right in general. I think it's awful to swindle people out of their cash for any kind of false reasons. And then my second idea of why I wanted to spank this guy is because, like, why would you like willingly pretend to be part of the Trump family, like at all? Like, spank all day, spank. My thank of the week is in happy news. Speaking of critical race theory, the Met will be returning 3 African art objects to Nigeria. They're part of the Benin Kingdom in Nigeria. They're three parts of a major art collection that were procured during a war, a British war. So in my mind, this was like they were purchased by an art collector many years later, but originally they were stolen from the Nigerian people through this war. And so this is like an act of very studied reparations and an act to combat colonialism, which I think is cool. I think the Met's doing a cool thing, and when big galleries like the Met do this kind of stuff and return the art to the people that it was stolen from, I think it sets a good precedent for smaller arts and individual art collectors to do the same thing. So thank you, the Met. And the pieces are very cool. If you're an art fan, they're metal plaques, and they're really, really neat to look at. So thank you for doing what I believe is the right thing.
All right, I can go pretty quick. So my spank is going to be the 35-year-old piece of shit, Keith Dawson. Keith Dawson is the stepfather of the 14-year-old boy that was killed in Woodbury at a graduation party about a week back. What this guy did, he was a convicted felon, had guns, which he was not allowed to have legally. He thought that there was some stuff going down at this graduation party in Woodbury, so he went there and decided to essentially do a drive-by shooting, which ultimately led to the killing of his own stepson, because when the people shot back, they shot into a car that this 14-year-old stepson, who was at the party with his brother or stepbrother, I don't even know who he was, but anyway, so this Keith Dawson guy ended up, because he wanted to be a tough guy, ended up leading to the death of his own own family member. There are 3 other people who have been charged with this who are not in the state, so they're fugitives, so they're trying to find him. But this is something where, as much as we want to blame everyone, we want to blame guns or blame cops or blame this or blame that, this is someone who made a choice that led to the death of his own family member out of bravado, and I think that is just horrible. And now there's a 14-year-old boy who will not be able to grow up to benefit society, and a mother who lost another son. My thank, I'm going to switch it to be more positive, but so my thank is really going to be very quickly to Congressman Dean Phillips for having the courage to call out Ilhan Omar for equating the United States and Israel with Hamas. I give him credit for that, but this is my real thank. My real thank is going to be to Governor Tim Walz, and this is because I went to the funeral of a family member this week. And the family member was from Mankato. He grew up in the same neighborhood as Tim Walz. Tim Walz was his teacher. Tim Walz was his football coach, and Tim Walz, my wife and I got there a smidge late, so we were sat late, and we ended up being sat about 4 people down the pew from Tim Walz. And I talked to the governor very briefly afterwards, but during the service, Tim Walz, who sat in the middle of all of us without security around him or anything, and he wept like a real honest to God person for this person that he knew. Now we're in budget talks. He had every reason in the world not to make time to be at this funeral, but he was there, and I give him a lot of credit for that. His emotion was very genuine, and we should never forget, as much as we don't like some of the people in politics, that they are in fact people with mothers, fathers, sons, kids that they mentored, and everything. So anyway, My some Sarah's complaining that I only get one thank, but you should like my thank. So thank you, Tim Walls, for coming to my family member's funeral.
That's nice. Okay, my spank very quickly is for the light rail. KSTP did a great story on what's been going down on light rail. A woman smoking meth, a man carried off in a stretcher after an apparent overdose. Light rail, since the pandemic, has even gotten worse, but I lived down by the Viking Stadium. I would take light rail to the airport. And frankly, they said this has been going on for the last 18 months, but I'm here to tell you that both on the trains and in the stops or in the stations, there's been all kinds of things. I'm telling you that I would go at 5 a.m. to take for an early flight out, and would feel absolutely in danger of my life at 5 a.m. That there would be guys that would come up to you on the platform and like just say horrible things, make terrible threats. I would try to find like a stop with a couple women in it, but it wasn't like there was anything that any of us could do. We just had to put up with the harassment and with the fear. And so light rail has been a mess I lived there since 2016. And I don't know a moment where I was comfortable taking the light rail at any time. So I want to spank light rail, and you guys really, Metro Transit cops and everything, there's a lot of work to do. Get on it. And then my spank is for My Pillow founder Mike Lindell, which might surprise some people. What? He has filed in court. He's made a claim of in court against two Dominion and what's the other one? Smartmatic. They are voting systems. They're companies that do voting machines. As you know, he was really bad mouthing them, and then they filed a defamation suit against him, which quieted him somewhat. But this story is amazing. So now he's sued back for sort of countersued for defamation and all of that. And a couple things. One, the 82-page complaint is amazing. Like there's things that like weaponizing the litigation process to silence political dissent and suppress evidence showing voting machines were manipulated to affect the outcomes. Like, so he's still making the arguments in there. Second, the very strange thing is he's represented by this Alec Berg, I think is his name, in Minnesota.
Alec Berg.
And Mr. Berg was working with Barnes and Thornburg here in Minneapolis. Oh, I'm sorry, Alec Beck. Sorry about any Alec Bergs out there.
Alec Berg is from Seinfeld.
Alec Beck. He was with Barnes and Thornburg, but what Barnes and Thornburg, he filed the suit for the Mike Lindell and didn't tell them or didn't get sign off from Barnes and Thornburg, so they fired him. So that's a part of this. And then finally, the amount that he's suing for is hilarious to me. He's suing them for potential loss of $2 billion to his pillow company. And let me tell you, there is not enough time left in this world, in the life of this world, where those pillows are ever going to be worth $2 billion. They're not worth 25 cents at a garage sale. Don't even take them to the cabin. They're garbage.
Yeah, no.
I think it's time to stop calling him a former crack addict.
Anyway, $2 billion. You are. Thank Mike Lindell for that fun story.
So much fun.
And with that, I am wearing shorts and loving it. Amy Koch.
I am watching the Cubs beat the Cardinals 8-5. Mike Fotis. Brian McDaniel.
He's actually watching.
Nice.
Don't want to go outside. It's nice and air conditioned here, Javier Murillo.
I got my air cranked up so hard it's giving me a bloody nose. Lauren Anderson.
And we are
wrong about everything.
Bar rapper. I can't believe that.